Hello everyone, welcome to back my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hollyoaks is set to introduce a sinister new mystery involving Grace Black next week. In recent months, Grace has faced heartbreak as she found out that her husband Freddie had fallen in love with her best friend Mercedes. Realizing that Freddie was preparing to end their marriage, Grace took action on Christmas Day and hatched a plan with her brother Rex. He shot Grace in the village, and she made it look like she jumped in to save Freddie's life. Her plan worked, as a grateful Freddie eventually decided to stay with Grace. But her happiness didn't last long, as this week she overheard her husband telling Robbie that their spark is gone, and he is with her out of pity. Meanwhile, when Grace returned home from hospital, she found out about the criminal scheme Rex was involved in, and her brother begged her to try and get him out. She was initially reluctant, but after discovering Freddie's interest in her was fading, she decided to revive the notorious Grace Black to win him back and return to her criminal roots. Grace met up with Rex's mysterious boss, who turned out to be D.I. Banks. She then came back to her brother and suggested that they team up to take over the whole organization as Fraser Black's children. However, in scenes that will air next week, Grace will find herself under attack when a funeral wreath with Grace's name on it arrives at her front door. She isn't the only one shaken by this sinister threat, as Freddie, Robbie, and Vicky are also left on edge by the situation. Grace's track record means it would be understandable to suggest she is behind this morbid wreath, but makes it clear to Rex that she didn't send it to herself. Therefore, someone is out to get her. Freddie has his own problems to deal with next week, when Mercedes overhears a conversation between him and Vicky and finds out about their affair. Who is sending a deadly message to Grace, and will she find out about her husband's second huge betrayal? The clock struck midnight, and a chilly mist rolled over the empty streets of Hollyoaks village. The usual hustle and bustle of the Nightingale's patrons and the occasional argument outside the dog in the pond had been replaced by an eerie silence. Grace Black stood alone in the center of the village, her stilettos clicking against the cobblestones. She clutched her designer coat tightly around her shoulders, her piercing eyes scanning the darkness. Grace had always been a woman who thrived on power and control, whether it was in her relationships, her business dealings, or her many schemes. But tonight, there was an unfamiliar flicker of vulnerability in her gaze. Something or someone had unsettled her. Earlier that day, Grace had received an anonymous letter delivered to the loft. The envelope was plain, with no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper contained a cryptic message written in jagged handwriting. "You've buried your secrets, but the ground remembers. The truth is closer than you think." Attached to the note was a photograph, an old faded image of a young girl standing in front of what appeared to be a dilapidated farmhouse. Grace's stomach churned as she examined the photo. The girl in the picture looked hauntingly familiar, though Grace couldn't place where she had seen her before. That same sense of unease lingered as she paced the village square, her mind racing with questions. Who had sent the letter? What did they want? And most importantly, what dark secret from her past was about to resurface? The next morning, Grace's usual confidence returned as she strode into the loft, the heels of her boots echoing on the polished floors. She refused to let anyone see her rattled, least of all her employees. Her loyal assistant Nadira was already behind the bar, organizing the bottles with military precision. "Morning, boss," Nadira said brightly, though her tone faltered as she caught the steely expression on Grace's face. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Grace snapped, brushing past her. "But I need you to find out who's been sneaking around my office." Nadira frowned. "Sneaking around? What do you mean?" Grace hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about the letter or the photograph, not even her closest allies. But if someone had been bold enough to break into her private space, it wasn't a matter to be taken lightly. "Never mind," Grace said, waving her hand dismissively. "Just tighten up security. I don't want any surprises." But surprises were exactly what she was about to get. Later that day, Grace's world took another unsettling turn when Warren Fox sauntered into the loft. His signature smirk and dangerous aura always managed to set her on edge, though she would never admit it. "What do you want, Warren?" Grace asked, folding her arms across her chest. "Relax, Black," he drawled. "I'm just here for a drink, unless, of course, you've got something else on your mind." Grace glared at him. If I did, you'd be the last person I'd talk to. Warren's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he could sense the tension radiating off her. You seem a bit jumpy, something going on? Nothing I can't handle, Grace retorted, though her voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Warren didn't push the issue, but his presence lingered long after he had left. Grace couldn't shake the feeling that he knew more than he was letting on. And if Warren Fox was involved, things were bound to get messy. That evening, Grace's curiosity got the better of her. She pulled the photograph from her bag and examined it once more. The farmhouse in the background looked vaguely familiar, though she couldn't place it. Determined to get answers, she decided to pay a visit to an old contact who specialized in digging up dirt, James Nightingale. James's sharp wit and sharper tongue were often more trouble than they were worth, but Grace knew he had a knack for uncovering the truth. She found him at the Dog, nursing a glass of red wine and scrolling through his phone. Grace, James said with a sly grin as she approached. To what do I owe the pleasure? Cut the charm, James, I need your help. My help, he echoed, raising an eyebrow. This must be serious. Grace slid the photograph across the table. James picked it up, his expression shifting from amusement to intrigue. Interesting, he murmured. What's the story behind this? That's what I need you to find out, Grace said. The farmhouse, big girl, anything you can dig up. James studied her for a moment before nodding. Consider it done, but you know my services don't come cheap. Spare me the sales pitch, Grace replied. Just get it done. Over the next few days, Grace's paranoia grew. Strange things began happening around the village, a shadowy figure lurking near the loft, unexplained noises outside her flat, and the feeling that she was constantly being watched. She couldn't shake the sense that someone was toying with her, drawing her into a dangerous game. James finally delivered his findings a week later. The farmhouse in the photograph was located on the outskirts of Chester, long abandoned after a fire had gutted it nearly 2 decades ago. As for the girl, James had uncovered a name, Emily Black. Grace's breath caught in her throat. The name stirred a long-buried memory, one she had tried desperately to forget. Emily Black was her younger sister, a child who had vanished without a trace when they were both teenagers. The disappearance had torn their family apart, leaving Grace to fend for herself in a world that seemed intent on swallowing her whole. But why was Emily's name resurfacing now? And who was behind the cryptic message? The answers came sooner than Grace expected. Late one night, she received a phone call from a blocked number. The voice on the other end was distorted, but the message was chillingly clear. You thought you could bury the past, Grace, but the past has a way of digging itself back up. Emily's waiting for you. Before Grace could respond, the line went dead. Shaking, she stared at the phone in her hand. The game was far from over, and if she wanted to uncover the truth, she would have to confront the ghosts of her past. But one thing was certain, whoever was behind this knew her darkest secrets, and they weren't going to let her escape them easily. As the clock ticked towards midnight once more, Grace Black found herself standing at the edge of a mystery that threatened to unravel everything she had built. And this time, there was no guarantee she would come out on top. Thanks for watching this video, and please subscribe our Hollyoaks Update YouTube channel for more update news.